You're all set to begin, Jake.
All right. This is the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for Wednesday, May 28th, 2025. It is 7 p.m. To all persons interested in or affected by the action of the Zoning Board of Appeals, you're hereby notified pursuant to Section 11 of Chapter 48 of the General Laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and all amendments thereto, that a public hearing on the following appeals will be held today, Wednesday, May 28th, 2025. The Zoning Board of Appeals public hearing will be held by remote participation methods. Public access to this meeting shall be provided in the following manner. The meeting will be televised live via Xfinity Channel 8 or High Definition Channel 1072. It may also be accessed via the Government Access Channel live stream on the Town of Barnstable's website. Website is http://streaming85.townofbarnstable.us/cablecast public site/watch/1 Real-time access to Zoning Board of Appeals meeting is available by utilizing the Zoom link and telephone number and meeting ID provided. Public comment can be addressed to the Zoning Board of Appeals by utilizing Zoom link or telephone number and meeting ID. The Zoom link is https://townofbarnstable-us.zoom.us/j/837-335-80487 or calling 888-475-4499 and entering the meeting ID 837-3358-0487. Applicants or representatives and individuals required or entitled to appear before the Zoning Board of Appeals may appear remotely, may participate through accessing the link or telephone number provided. Documentary exhibits and or visual presentations should be submitted in advance of the meeting to anna.brigham@town.barnstable.ma.us so that they may be displayed for remote public access viewing. Copies of the applications are available for review by calling 508-862-4682 or emailing anna.brigham@town.barnstable.ma.us. I will call the meeting to order with the introduction of board members. Herb Bodenseek.
Present.
Paul Bernard is absent. Mark Hansen.
Present.
Aaron Webb.
He's muted.
Aaron, you're muted. Aaron?
I'll see you. Actually,
Now we can hear you. Larry Hurwitz.
Present.
Manny Alves.
Present.
Rodney Tavano is absent. Natalie Pittenger.
Present.
And I am Jacob Dewey. Notice of recording. This meeting is of the Zoning Board of Appeals is being recorded and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government Access Channel. In accordance with MGL Chapter 38, Section 20, I must inquire whether anyone is recording this meeting, and if so, to please make their presence known. Seeing none. We had minutes from January 22nd, 2025. Has everyone reviewed those? Does anyone want to make a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
I need a second.
Second.
All right, roll call vote on approving the minutes. Herb Bodenseek. Did we lose you?
Oh, in favor? That didn't go through?
Mark Hansen.
I'm in favor.
Aaron Webb.
favor.
Larry Hurwitz.
Favor.
Manny Alves.
I'm in favor.
Rodney Tavanos absent. Natalie Pittenger.
In favor.
And I am also in favor. So minutes are approved. First item of old business, appeal number 2025-006. James D. Clark and Christine D. Clark have appealed an administrative official's decision. The petitioners are appealing the notice of zoning ordinance request for enforcement denial dated January 24, 2025 under MGL Chapter 48, Section 7. The petitioners submit that the decision of the administrative official dated January 24, 2025 was in error, as the structure was erected at 968 Main Street is not a pole supported by wires / ropes and burlap, but was constructed by 4x4 lumber cemented into the earth extending approximately 20 feet into the air directly on common property line draped with burlap, which encroaches on 978 Main Street. The subject property is located at 978 Main Street, Katuitt, Massachusetts, as shown on Assessor's Map 034 as parcel 032. It's located in the Residence F RF zoning district. This was continued from March 26, 2025, April 9, 2025, April 23rd, 2025, May 14th, 2025. Members assigned were myself, Herb Bodensee, Paul Pernard, Mark Hansen, and Rodney Tavano. Attorney Schultz, are you here, or are we just going with the
He
line?
did send in a request to
I
withdraw.
didn't know if he was going to. So he has made a request to withdraw this this appeal. Does someone want to make a motion to accept withdrawal?
So
Motion
moved.
to, yep. Second.
Roll call vote on accepting the withdrawal. Herb Bodensee,
In favor.
Mark Hansen,
I'm in favor.
Paul Bernard's not here, and Rod's not here either. Anna, should I can poll the rest of the group for withdrawal? Is that okay?
Sure.
Aaron Webb,
I'm in favor. I can't figure out what's happening with that screen, but is he trying to put a note up there? Chair, Dawn, whatever. I'm in favor.
Okay. Seeing,
I don't know what's happening.
I'm seeing Aaron.
Larry Hurwitz,
I'm in favor.
Manny House,
I'm in favor. Just a point of clarification, Mr. Chairman. I think the withdrawal is without prejudice. Attorney Schultz is reserving his right to potentially come back. But
okay.
I'm in favor of the motion to withdraw.
Natalie Pittenger,
In favor.
and I am also in favor. So appeal number 2025-006 is withdrawn. All right. So moving on to new business. Appeal number 2025-013, Wilkins Lane Properties LLC has applied for a special permit pursuant to section 240-125C1 to 3 special permit provisions and 240-381F mixed-use subzone of the Medical Services Overlay District. The applicant seeks to construct 5 residential apartment buildings containing a total of 320 units, which will be served by a combination of surface parking and detached garages. The proposal also includes 1 single-story clubhouse / leasing building and residential amenities such as a pool, courtyards, outdoor seating areas, grills, and a dog run area. The subject property is located at 0 Wilkins Lane, Hyannis, Mass, as shown on Assessor's Map 296 as parcel 039-001. It's located in the industrial IND, residence G, RG, and business B zoning districts, and the medical services overlay, the MSO, mixed use subzone of the MSO, and is in a GP and AP overlay district. So sitting on this will be our regular members, Herb, Mark. Aaron's not going to be available for the next meeting, so if we have enough members to sit on it, Manny, do you want to sit on this?
Sure.
And Natalie?
Sure.
And I will sit on this as well. Attorney Ford, are you here?
I am.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'm with my clients from NED, and Mr. John Toohey from NED is going to start the presentation. We have a slide deck that we've sent in.
Okay. I did just want to just disclose that I am in the business of, of rental property and properties. I have no connection to this property, this parcel, or anything to do with it. I have no problem sitting on this, but just want that to be in the record.
I'd also like to put in the record that I also work within this space. I have no financial or any other affiliation with this. I'm happy to sit on it if it is, if it's okay with council.
Attorney Ford, are you comfortable with that?
Yes, no objection from our side, Mr. Chairman, with either disclosure.
Okay. And then just for the public's record, public's notice, so we are going to hear this tonight. We're going to hear from Attorney Ford. We're going to open public comment. but we're not going to make any decisions on this tonight. We're going to carry it on to our next meeting, which would be in person, which would give people opportunity that don't like Zoom to come in person as well to speak to it. So we will listen tonight and we'll keep public comment open. We also can receive letters via email to Anna if there's comments in between. Attorney Ford, over to you.
Thank you, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Tuig, John Tuig from New England Development.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're going to open up our presentation. I'll be brief, a few opening comments, and then turn it back to Mike Ford to run you through. So if you just give us another couple of seconds, hopefully, can you see that presentation okay?
Yeah, can you just state your name and what your affiliation is for the record, please?
Certainly. Actually, we'll go to the first slide because we have everything there. My name is John Tuig. Again, thank you for letting us be here tonight and present this project to you. I'm with my colleagues Paul Sincotta and Mark Jackson. We also have representatives from the Hanover Company, who are our joint venture partner, David Hall, Steve Dazzo. We also have a couple of consultants with us tonight, Nate Chio from Tetra Tech, who's our stormwater expert, and also Jeff Dirk from Vanessa & Associates. Not necessarily that they would be involved, they're not part of the presentation, but we did ask them to join us just in case there was anything that particularly came up that we could not respond to. Also, I think you all know Mr. Ford. Mike Ford is with us, and also Tim Sullivan, who's our corporate counsel, is with us tonight. By way of agenda, just to give you a sense of what we'd like to try to accomplish tonight. Mr. Chair, as you mentioned, this presentation obviously will be continued to June, but we thought it would be helpful to give you a little bit of background on New England Development, a little bit of project background, sort of the how did we end up here. And I think thirdly, as most people know, we built the first building, and people would like to know, because we did go through Barnstable Town Council, rezone this area, sort of how did it do, because we think it has a framework for what we're talking about tonight. Then I'm going to turn it to Mike and talk about the project, kind of give you the background on the zoning and the commission, some of the utilities and related stormwater issues, the things that are related to the project that we've gone through, because this project has gone through both the original rezoning, it has gone through Cape Cod Commission, and it has gone through site plan. So Mike will talk a little bit about the project, and then obviously the special permit criteria. How did we get before you tonight, and how does that criteria function? So that's our goal, and that's what we'll speak to. As to New England Development, just a little bit of background. New England Development was founded over 50 years ago by our chairman, Steve Karp, who is still our chairman. We've done a lot of different projects. Originally, we were a regional shopping center company. We developed regional shopping centers. We actually worked on the Cape Cod Mall. Most of the Simon malls that you go into in New England are malls that we did. About 20 plus years ago, we sort of decided to change the company. We sold our malls to Simon, kept a few, sold many of them, and then went into the business of developing different things. Pine Hills, for example, a project up in Plymouth, a planned community of 3,000 homes. We've built about 2,600 of those homes today. This gives you a sense of some of the things that we do and have done over the last many years. Nantucket is a place that we have a lot of the hotels, and the boat basin and the wharf areas are all part of New England Development today. Newburyport, a historic waterfront on the North Shore. Similarly, we have 700 marina slips there. We have a lot of commercial property there. We really became a company that focused a lot on people and places when we sort of morphed out of the retail business. We love retail. We still are involved in it, but really somewhat changed our focus about 20 plus years ago. And I think, how did we get involved in sort of this development? And our background, I think, would be helpful. we acquired this land from Cape Cod Hospital, which had an existing development agreement with the commission. It originally was going to sand and gravel pit, former LaRusso sand and gravel pit. It was originally going to be where the hospital would relocate. And the changes that happened in healthcare, and of course, obviously, if you go to the hospital today, you'll see their new building. They decided to stay. We have worked with, as a company, hospitals for a lot of years. It is sort of our position, just to give you a little bit of a sense, our chairman, Steve Karp, for many years, has been chairman of the board at Boston Children's Hospital. Our vice chairman, Steve Fishman, has been the vice chair and the head of the real estate committee for Mass General. We've worked with Cape Cod Hospital. Cape Cod Hospital identified a need, and there were really two needs. One, financial support, but also a desire to expand their facility. And when we went through the rezoning in the earlier process, that was part of what we did. But we created, and Mike will speak in more detail to this, the idea of having an overlay district, a subzone, which would allow mixed use, but would also allow multifamily. So that's how we sort of got involved in the project originally, was our support for Cape Cod Healthcare. Now, since that time, and that happened over the past several years, we did take a second building, which we'll talk about tonight, through Cape Cod Commission, and we also did take it through site plan approval very recently with Barnstable. And before I turn it over to Mike, I think it would be helpful because people always asked us, sort of, why are you coming to, Paul, if you go to the next slide, why are you sort of coming to the Cape? Although we have a lot of experience here traditionally, it was not readily accepted that the kind of projects that we do are, in a larger scale rental projects would be accepted here. But we all knew, and as we've had in Nantucket and other places that we have on the Cape, the need for housing. And one of the things that we did as part of the original rezoning was to increase the amount of affordable housing. And in our first project, just to give you a sense, we're 95% leased today. 2/3 of the people who live there, because that was always a question that we got as part of our first project, who's going to live here? We also have 36 privately funded and constructed affordable residences. And the project that Mike will speak about tonight is over 40 more. And just to give you a sense of demand, those 36 units for affordability, those residential affordable residences, we had 150 applicants. They are 100% full today. The demand became very clear to us. To give you a sense, and those of you who are in the real estate business, and I know who sit on the ZBA, and generally, we signed 12 leases in the first 15 minutes of opening up leasing on this project. Normally, a project like this and these homes, you would spend 12, 14, 16 months to lease up that space. We did it far quicker than that. And the type of people, and people always ask, well, who's living there? Cape Cod Hospital folks, whether they be doctors, nurses, technicians. Town employees all over the Cape are living here in this space. Airport employees are living here in this space. School teachers, administrators, faculty are living in this space. Principals of one of the high schools said, who was coming actually off Cape every day, we're looking for a place to live here on the Cape. Local professionals, contractors, business owners, all living in this space. And as I mentioned, we're 95% leased here today. And that demand has continued. So we really have been able to realize and to support, and I'll give you an example. Mike Loff, who's the CEO of the hospital, today, over 27% of his workforce every day comes across the bridge or bridges. And that is not a sustainable thing if you are running a hospital, which is one of the reasons hospital was our actually biggest tenant mix that we have. So that gives you a little sense of who we are, how we got involved in this space, because we do work a great deal in the hospital world. A lot of the projects that we do are related to hospitals or in many cases funding of hospitals, and how we have been encouraged to look at, given the zoning that we had put in place, is there an opportunity, and we believe there is, to move forward with a second set of residences for this area. So with that said, Mike, I'll turn it over to you to talk a little bit about the project and why we're here tonight.
Thank you, John. I assume, Mr. Chairman, I can proceed?
Yes, please, by all means. Yep.
Thank you. So first, where is the property? A lot of you are familiar with it, but this is a slide to just give you an idea exactly where it is, the project site. It's located in between Kids Hill Road and Addicts Lane, off of the newly constructed Wilkins Lane. I say newly constructed, it was constructed by the hospital when they built their first 25,000 square feet of ambulatory care in that particular area. And the rest of the site that Mr. Tuig described that NED purchased from the hospital is in that shaded area. And the other neighbors are BJ's to the south west. Up above, Cape Cod Aggregates. This area that is proposed to be developed with phase 2, as Mr. Tuig indicated, is a former sand and gravel pit, so heavily disturbed site. Virtually no trees on it at this point other than some smaller shrub trees. And then the hospital's a neighbor. And then Hanover Hyannis, which Mr. Tuig just described, the success of and the rental out of that particular development is to the northeast of the property. Next slide, please. So this particular development that's before the Board of Appeals tonight is a long time coming. I say that in as much as we worked very hard initially with the town council and the planning board of the town to effectuate an amendment to the Barnstable zoning ordinance to create what's shown on this plan as the yellow hatched area, which is a subzone, as it was labeled, of the medical overlay services district. And it was called a mixed-use subzone. Why? Because it introduced the element of allowing housing in this area, which we have been encouraged to do. And so we worked first with the planning board on a draft of the subzone and went through a number of public hearings with the planning board until we had a proposed amendment that the planning board supported. And then, as the law requires under Chapter 48, Section 5, we proceeded with public hearings before the council. And there, the proposed ordinance was modified with some amendments. One thing in particular that we worked on with the council was to increase affordability in any multifamily project that was built on this property to 13%. When I say increase, what I mean, Barnstable, as all of you know, has an inclusionary general ordinance that requires any multifamily project over 10 units to have at least 10% affordable. And so we automatically were required to have 10% at 65% average medium income, or AMI as it's called. And the council wanted more than that. And so after a negotiation with the council, we agreed, or NED did, to add an additional 3%. So there'd be 13% affordable units. The additional 3% could be up to 80% of AMI. And frankly, that was a suggestion of the town and the applicant because the need in the higher average medium income ranges in the town was very evident, given the housing studies that had been done by the community. So that's how that ended up. The other thing that was very important to the council was they wanted this to be rental multifamily housing. They saw the need for rental. They really weren't looking for more condominiums in town. And NED, as the applicant and owner of the property, agreed that they would build rentals, that rentals were the need. And so all of the multifamily housing that gets built under this subzone has to be rental and not a condominium form of ownership. Thirdly, there was a concern about short-term rentals and the effect they are having on the housing market and the rental market all over Cape Cod, not just in Barnstable. And so a further provision was agreed to in the zoning ordinance, which was that 90% of any multifamily project that was built in the subzone had to be leased under the rental for at least 1 year, a minimum of 1 year. 10% of the project could be leased at less than 1 year, but not less than 6 months. And that was really to take care of transient people. Sometimes there are people that need to come into town and they have a project that they may work on. They may be at the hospital, they may be someplace else for less than a year. And so and then there are always people moving in and out. So it made sense that the other 10% would have a limitation of at least 6 months. So the town ended up what it was looking for, which was multifamily housing, rental housing, additional affordable, and no short-term rentals, all of which got incorporated into the zoning ordinance. The other thing that got incorporated into the zoning ordinance, if I can stay on that just for one moment, and we'll get into this in more detail, is that the first phase that Mr. Tuig spoke about, phase 1, was allowed under the ordinance as a matter of right. But then the town wanted a provision in there that if a project was brought forward from multifamily more than 1,000 feet from Kids Hill Road, that would trigger the need for a special permit. This is that project that was contemplated by that particular provision, because the 15 acres that are before you tonight are 1,000 feet away from Kids Hill Road, and thus trigger that special permit. And we'll talk more about the special permit and its criteria as we go along. Next slide. So this highlights the DRI approval that this project has received. Procedurally, like anything that goes to the Cape Cod Commission, we had to start in Barnstable with the filing of a site plan. And because there were more than 30 units, we were an automatic mandatory referral to the Cape Cod Commission. And we're referred to the commission by the site plan committee probably almost 2 years ago now, or 15 months or so. The Cape Cod Commission under phase 1 had handled the referral at our request as an amendment to a development agreement that the property, all of the property, 42 acres, was already subject to. And that's how phase 1 was approved at the Cape Cod Commission. This time around, the commission asked us to file as a development of regional impact, since this seemed to be more of a project that was related just to this particular 15-acre site, although there are many synergies between 1 and 2 of the phases. So this was handled at the commission as a DRI. These are some of the highlights of that DRI approval, which I can report to you was a unanimous approval. All the Cape Cod Commission members who voted on it throughout the Cape voted to approve it, including your representative from the town of Barnstable. So the project, as approved by the Cape Cod Commission, has 42. That 42 affordable units comes from the 13% that Barnstable placed in their ordinance. And those are for, again, 10% making less than 65% area median income, and then another 3% at 80% area median income. The second thing the Cape Cod Commission decision provides, and these are highlights, is a $324,000 transportation mitigation payment that will come to the town of Barnstable. And for future physical safety or pedestrian improvements. And That money gets spent with the approval of the town in areas having to do with transportation mitigation that the town decides on, relating to those three areas primarily: physical safety and pedestrian improvements and other traffic improvements. Another requirement was constructing a sidewalk along a portion of Wilkins. And later in the presentation, I'm going to show you a slide that details all of the pedestrian and bike path connections that have developed from phases 1 and 2 as a result of these projects. But there was a section of sidewalk that still hadn't been completed. That is a requirement of this DRI, that portion which is on Wilkins Lane, we'll show it to you. We've got to create an accessible pedestrian pathway and make sure you get out to Addicks and then on to Finney's and on to the Hathaway's Pond recreation area. All those sidewalks will be connected as a result of this project. A fourth, as a highlight, and we will have a slide on stormwater, and this will become, I'll describe this in more detail, but there's an agreement that all fertilizers would be non-nitrogen, and that all grasses used across the site would be native, fescues and rye grasses. Finally, in keeping with the Cape Cod Commission's emphasis on climate and climate change, all the residences are all electric, just as phase 1 was. And in addition to that, there are vehicle charging stations that will be provided for on site, both in the parking lot and some of them in the garages. And there were vehicle charging sites in phase 1 as well. And we've been asked and have agreed that a similar number of those charging stations be put in this phase 2. So those are the highlights of the Cape Cod Commission approval, which has been obtained. This is the proposed project site, a portion of the site plan and a mixture of the landscape plan as well. It shows you the layout of the 5 buildings in which the 320 residents are going to be placed with a range of housing mixes. The 42, again, privately funded, there's no federal, state, or local funding for the affordable units. They're constructed throughout the properties, and they contain all the same amenities as the market rate units, and are entitled to all of the same amenities on use as the market rate units. They will be deed restricted in accordance with any affordable unit, and all those units will count for the town of Barnstable against climbing to that state goal and number that all the Cape Towns have of at least 10%. So all of those will be restricted, and all those will be allowed to be counted by the town of Barnstable. The architecture, you'll see in a minute when I show you some elevations, is a different design than phase 1. We were encouraged by the Cape Cod Commission, and we worked with their design planners to come up with a different type of facade for these buildings. You'll see that in more detail in the next slide that comes up. But this was an effort to break up the architecture and use materials that show variations in both the siding and the roof line. All of the buildings are 4-story in height. All of the buildings that have units in them, not the garages, obviously, are 55 feet, are under 55 feet in height. The ordinance itself allows 55 feet in height for multifamily buildings, provided the site is at least 10 acres, and this site is a little over 15 acres. I've already indicated the residences are all electric, and they are also wired for solar, so there's solar readiness. And I've already indicated too that there'll be non-nitrogen fertilizers throughout, and I'll get into that in a little more detail when I get to stormwater. Next slide. So this is a slide of the elevation of the buildings. It also shows the leasing / clubhouse building. In phase 1, The leasing and clubhouse building, the amenities, were built into the first building that was built. For any of you who have been over to the Hanover Hyannis project, you'll know that the amenities are contained within that first building itself. This one has been mixed up so that the leasing building and the clubhouse and amenities are in a separate building. It's of a modest scale. It's a bit of what the Cape Cod Commission calls a liner building, so that it adds some softness to the larger buildings behind it. And we were encouraged by the commission to go in this direction and have done that. And that met with their community character standards. I should say that during that process, before you leave that slide, is that the Cape Cod Commission did elicit comments from town staff with respect to this particular design of the buildings as we went along. Next slide. So this is the stormwater slide. It has a dotted line that cuts it into about, I'd say, 3/4 and then another quarter to the right. That line is a line that separates the Lewis Bay embayment area and the Barnstable Harbor embayment area. At the Cape Cod Commission, they have mapped all of these embayment areas, and what they are is areas that are recharge areas that the Cape Cod Commission looks to and tests the water quality of to develop regulations for development that will occur within these recharge areas. And so the right-hand side of the slide, or the eastern and southeastern portion, is in that Lewis Bay embayment area of Hyannis Harbor. That area has been deemed by the Cape Cod Commission and designated as a nitrogen-sensitive area, that there has been an overload of nitrogen in that area. And so their regulations provide that when you develop it, they want no new nitrogen to be placed in that embayment area as a result. So what we were asked to do and what we've done, you can see some kind of robin's egg blue 3 sections. Those are the stormwater retention basins that are being constructed on the site. And we placed all of them on the left-hand side of the site, which is in the Barnstable Harbor embayment area. Barnstable Harbor embayment area is not deemed to be nitrogen sensitive. And therefore, that's where the stormwater that comes off of the site will be placed for discharge. I will tell you that the Barnstable Harbor folks said, well, you know, there's been some recent studies, even though you don't classify the Barnstable Harbor embayment as one that's nitrogen sensitive at this point. We have folks that are taking tests over there. And so we'd appreciate it if you did not use any nitrogen fertilizers. Even on the Barnstable side, we had started out with having no nitrogen fertilizers just on the Lewis Bay side. And we agreed to that, and that's a condition of the Cape Cod Commission decision after initial planting that no nitrogen fertilizers will be used on the left-hand side of that. So with that, the stormwater was approved. You'll hear me when I go through the site plan review requirements that we acknowledge that the town of Barnstable has its own stormwater permitting now, and we will be going through that with the DPW. We've done an extensive stormwater analysis that we did for the commission, and the DPW already has that, and they're beginning to look at that. But there is a local permit that we will also be required to obtain for stormwater, and we acknowledge that. Next slide. So this is a slide for the water and sewer design. The wastewater is proposed to be directed to the sanitary sewer system in Kids Hill Road. The water will connect to the existing water main in Wilkins Lane. We have been working first with sewer, with your DPW department. you'll hear me speak when I go through the site plan review letter, that one of the conditions of the DPW approval at site plan was that we work with the town and do an evaluation of the sewer infrastructure in this area and the Bierces Way pumping station to ensure that there is capacity that will be able to serve this particular project. We're in the process of doing that evaluation with the town now. The early indicators are that there will not be any issues, but that evaluation hasn't been complete yet. And so that is a condition of our site plan review, and we fully intend to see that through. And we've made a lot of progress on it, and we think we're getting to a conclusion with that. But that's a condition that we're already have in our site plan review. With respect to the water department, we provided to the water department the water usage from phase one, which was very helpful to them. Now that there's already over 90% occupancy in phase one. So those were really real numbers for them. The water district, which is a sub-district of the fire district, it's all one fire district water department, but separate from the town. Sean Anderson is the water superintendent that we've been working with closely, and their engineers. They've determined that there is sufficient water supply. We've worked hard with them to lay out the looping of the water system within the site itself. And we have come to a conclusion as to where those water mains will be, and it will be a closed loop system. And so we're comfortable that we can meet their requirements as we go forward. But that's the status of our water connections at this point. Transportation. As Mr. Tuig indicated, our transportation consultant from Finance Associates, Jeff Dirk, is on tonight if there were an opportunity to, somebody wanted to ask questions. But he did an extensive traffic assessment, which is required by the Cape Cod Commission. For those of you who are not familiar with their process, it's fairly detailed. They first require, as they did of Jeff here, to submit a scope of what the area will be for study. He submitted that. They approved the study area, and then he undertook the analysis and submitted it to their traffic folks. They have a number of traffic planners at the Cape Cod Commission. And as a result of all of that, the DRI decision requires certain physical improvements that the applicant has agreed to make. There are 5 intersections. When we filed our application for the special permit, we attached a copy of the DRI decision. Hopefully some of you had an opportunity to go through it. Those intersections are referenced in detail in that decision, and I commend that to you if you're interested in seeing exactly where they are. 5 of them are on Route 132, and 4 of the intersections for traffic signal timing and phasing are along Addicts. In addition to that, there are certain safety improvements that we're required to make. Install the countdown type pedestrian signal indicators with push buttons at a couple of intersections. Install updated signage and striping. Improve selected signal equipment with back plates and yellow reflective tape. We also, as I indicated at the outset, and I'll get into it a little bit more when we get to pedestrian connectivity on the slide, that there's a section of sidewalk that we're also required to make accessible and complete right along Wilkins itself. And then, of course, the transportation mitigation payment that I mentioned at the outset in excess of $300,000, which will come to the town of Barnstable for expenditure on projects here in town. Next slide. So here is a slide I'd like to spend a minute on, which we developed in the course of the DRI review, and also have augmented it for the purposes of this special permit review. The red lines on the plan are a future rail trail, and you can see how that will connect, actually loop around this particular site and get over into the Hathaway's Pond area once the rail trail connections are completed. We were asked in phase one, the Hanover Hyannis section that's on there, to actually grant an easement to the town, as they were not sure whether or not they had sufficient area within the layout on that side of Kids Hill Road to accommodate the bike trail. And so an easement was granted in the event, if and when that is constructed, that easement would be used. So the red lines, as I say, are the bike trail lines. The yellow lines are the sidewalk system that has been constructed and will be completed with the construction of phase two, with that additional section to be built on Wilkins. The proposed project is labeled. You can see it labeled proposed project in kind of the center of the site. You'll see a sidewalk connection that runs from phase one to phase two. And then the sidewalk will run along the entrance out to Wilkins, and then down Wilkins, and a piece there that we will complete out to Addicks. And the sidewalk, some of which was required to be constructed by the phase one project, runs all the way along Addicks, all the way down to a couple of retailers. Stop and Shop is down there, BJ's is down there, and then all the way out to Finney's Lane. It's important that the sidewalk comes out on Finney's Lane where it does. Why? Finney's Lane is a busy road, and there is actually a crosswalk there that you can get across coming out of Addicks, a safe crosswalk to get across. And why is it important to get across to the other side of Finney's? Because that's where the sidewalk is. There is an existing sidewalk on the other side, and that sidewalk, when you get connected to it, can take you all the way down to the Hathaway's Pond recreation area. So when this project is completed and the last piece on Wilkins is done, the residents of phase two and phase one that's already built will be able, by sidewalk, to go down, get into the hospital if they wanted to, via sidewalk right there for ambulatory care, or come down to Addicks, where there are a variety of retail choices on the way down that sidewalk. And then if they wanted to, get all the way out to Finney's and be able to get down to the Hathaway's Pond recreation area and back. So we think this is an important slide. It was an important slide for the Cape Cod Commission, but we understand it's an important one for the town as well. You'll see the on the right-hand side are listed all of the accessible pathways that are created by this sidewalk system. Next slide. So I want to focus for a few minutes now on the special permit that we're before you on. And what is on this slide is your general, which the board is very familiar with, your general special permit criteria, where you have to find three determinations. A, that the application falls within a category specifically accepted by the chapter, and that's under 240, 125C, 1 through 3. These are listed. And in the next slide, you'll see the one that we're under that I'll go into in more detail. And then B, which I'm going to address sort of at the end, you as board members, after you hear all the evidence submitted, not just by the applicant, but by the public comment that comes forward, or staff, or reports, or other town staff, you have to make a finding that the project fills the spirit and intent of the chapter and can be built without substantial detriment to the public good of the neighborhood. And more about that as we get to the benefits of the project in a later slide. And 3, that we've undergone site plan review. And we have, and there is a copy of the site plan review approval letter that you have, and I'll walk through that as well. Next slide. So I mentioned this when I talked about the amendment to the ordinance that we had worked with the council, that under section 240-38.1F, multifamily dwellings are allowed by special permit in the mixed-use subzone if they're set back more than 1,000 feet from Kids Hill Road and meet the dimensional requirements of 240-38-1C. So what happened was that this particular ordinance, which is in the subzone, set forth specific criteria for multifamily that was constructed within the subzone, which is different than the criteria for multifamily in other areas of town governed by other sections of the ordinance. That section goes on to say that, you know, if you're more than 1,000 feet, as I said, from Kids Hill Road, you need the special permit. So this is really the project that was contemplated by that section of the ordinance. Next slide. This is the site plan approval side, but I think before I get to the site plan approval, I do want to run through at this point, Mr. Chairman, the dimensional requirements. If we go back to the previous slide, Paul. The dimensional requirements that are required for a multifamily development, I think this is important because you need to make all of these as findings when you get down to making findings. I put these on page 3 of the application to the zoning board in a chart. And I want to take just a moment and run through them because they're all things that I want to show you that we're in compliance with. First of all, the minimum lot areas. Minimum lot area in this area is 90,000 square feet or 1,500 square feet per unit. The lot obviously exceeds 90,000. It's over 15 acres, so it's over 650,000 square feet. And it comes out with a per unit size of over 2,039 square feet per unit. So we exceed the 1,500 square feet per unit. Minimum lot frontage. There really is no minimum lot frontage for multifamily in the subzone. This lot does have frontage, 56.1 feet. And so we're in compliance with the frontage requirement. I will tell you, there's an aside here that the 15-acre parcel that's before you was part of a 17-acre parcel. After the Cape Cod Commission DRI was approved, we were allowed to obtain other local permits. And we did submit a division plan to the planning board of the town and forming this 15.1 acre site and then creating another 2-acre site along Kids Hill Road. And that A&R plan, I can report to you tonight, has been endorsed by the planning board. So the 15-acre lot that is before you tonight has been created by virtue of an A&R endorsement. The minimum yard setbacks of 60 feet from the front yard, we exceed. We're at 106. The side and rear yards, the minimum is 30 feet. We're 31. We meet that. The maximum building height is 55. We're under 55. We're just under 55 for all the buildings. There is in this zone a maximum floor area ratio, and it's 0.75. Our floor area ratio with the buildings on site is 0.569, so just under 0.6, so we meet that. And then the maximum lot coverage is 25%. That's building and structures. We're at 16.2%, so we meet that. And then finally, the last two, there's a requirement that the maximum impervious coverage, and this comes from being in the groundwater protection districts. We're in the GP zone. And so we have that 50% requirement. We're at 47.5, so we meet that. And the perimeter green space is 20 feet. We're 30 foot minimum. And so we meet that as well. So I just wanted to take that moment, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, to go through to show you that we meet the dimensional requirements for multifamily on this particular plan as set forth in section 38(1)F of the zoning bylaw. So we can go to the next slide now. Site plan review. So I want to talk a minute about site plan review. As I indicated, that is one of the three-pronged criteria that we've got to show you we've accomplished. So we've been to site plan review. We have a site plan approval letter, which I believe you have in your file. I'm just looking for my copy. Get back to my application. Bear with me just a moment, Chairman. Yes. So the site plan review letter is dated April 22nd, 2025. I'm not going to go through all of it. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to read through it, but there are a couple things that I did want to highlight. Under building, there really are no requirements other than that we meet the building code and that we appear before you under zoning for a site plan special permit. And they've told us that signage will require a separate permitting. Under DPW, there were a lot of comments, and I think it's important to point out a couple to you. First, we're required to develop and complete an evaluation of the downgrading sewer collection system in consultation with the town, which includes an evaluation of the Bierce's Way pump station to ensure there's adequate sewer capacity to support the development. As I reported to you early on when we talked about wastewater, that study is ongoing. Vanessa Hangen Engineering is the engineering company that the applicant has brought in. There is a formula to assist in that evaluation that the town last had done in 2016. And so it is that formula that they've asked us to update as part of that evaluation, and that's ongoing. So we're very optimistic that will show that there is no issue of capacity. They also put in a provision that the traffic mitigation items that were identified by the Cape Cod Commission, all of the work that we're required to do at the various intersections, the DPW wanted to make sure that that was all done with prior notice to them and their approval. And that's part of the site plan. Makes abundant sense to us. It's most of it's on town roads anyway. They recommended a ladder-style crosswalk for safety out at the entrance way, and we've agreed to that. They have asked for some stop signs and stop bars at the exit. We've worked with them to generate that. They've asked that the compactor and generator located in the Zone 2 area, that we verify that there's secondary containment so that any release in the event of an accident of any hazardous materials that might be in the compactor would be able to. There's a requirement that obviously we have to discharge to the municipal sewer system. They told us about the stormwater management, and I've already indicated that we realize that the town has its own stormwater management permit, that we will go through that process as well. And there were a number of items that I'm not going to go all of them through that relate to sewer connection plans, and we've agreed to all of them and indicated that on the record. The planning and development comments, there's a couple of comments that they have that I wanted to assure you that we've either already accomplished or are ongoing. One of them is obviously we've got to obtain the special permit that we're before you on. They asked that we show pedestrian improvements as part of the overall network. I think that slide that we've developed, that we worked hard on with the Cape Cod Commission and have expanded for this special permit hearing, we've responded to that. They did take a look at, they have a comment that the curb cut to the newly installed curb cut to the abutting property, in other words, phase 1, needs to be discussed. I want to report to you that we've had that discussion. We met with them on the site. We had Jeff Dirk, when we were before the Cape Cod Commission, do a safety analysis of the distance between the two entrances. The Cape Cod Commission was satisfied that it was indeed safe. I think that having done an on-site meeting with members of your DPW and your planning staff, they've come to the same conclusion. I will tell you that they have asked that the newly created lot on the A&R plan, which was the 2-acre parcel I spoke about, which is adjacent to the entrance to the 15-acre site, that the principal access to anything that gets built on that will come off of Wilkins. So with all of those, I want to let you know about those discussions. We worked, I wanted you to be aware, very hard with the fire district and Chief Beal and his department, particularly on an emergency access to the site. Do we have a plan that shows the emergency access on this one? Not on this one, but we certainly have that. We have a plan of it and are happy to make it available if the Board of Appeals so desires, but we've completed that. And it's been laid out to the satisfaction of the fire department. We can report. We also have worked with the fire chief and the water department regarding the water main system and hydrants and their locations as to where they will be. All of that's a product of going through site plan review, and we were able to work cooperatively with the fire department for that. The health inspector really didn't have many comments other than regarding the fact that rental units need to be registered with the health department. We're aware of that, and that the pool would require a separate permit. And in the clubhouse itself, it does not appear that we're going to need a food service permit, but they advised us that if there was going to be food served there that was actually prepared there, that we might need a food service permit. So we're aware of all those requirements. And the fact that when the project's complete, site plan review requires a registered engineer submit a certified as-built. So all of that's been done, and we think the third prong of the three-prong criteria for special permit has been met by the site plan review. Next slide, Paul. So on the evaluation of all the evidence, everything that we've indicated to you to date as part of this presentation, we obviously is part of the evidence. And we think, as I walked you through the amendment to the ordinance that was worked out with the legislative body, the council, that we've touched all of those bases that are required in the ordinance. And the ordinance does provide that if you touch all those bases, a special permit shall be granted. With respect to a substantial detriment to the public good of the neighborhood, I'd like to review with you. We have a slide with benefits, I think. Just some of what we view as project benefits that you could find in that test as to whether this is substantially detrimental and whether it's in the interest of the public good. First, we have done a fiscal impact analysis, and the conclusion is that over $850,000 in taxes will come to the town and the fire district. Keep in mind this property before NED purchased it was tax exempt as the hospital, as a nonprofit, owned it, so there was no tax revenue being generated by the property. Second, the property, as I indicated, provides year-round housing, rental housing, which was what we heard from both the planning board and the council as to what they wanted, which was then placed in the ordinance itself. 42 more units will come online for the town of Barnstable for AMI, both at 65 and 80%. All units, not just the affordable units, have to be leased for not less than 12 months. And other than the 10% that may be leased for less than 12 months, but not less than 6. So in other words, the goal of the ordinance, whether we're within the purpose and intent of the ordinance, was get year-round rentals that were not short-term rentals. And we believe we've touched those bases in the ordinance accordingly. Secondly, the project is really a redevelopment. If you had a chance to go out to the site, it's a former sand and gravel pit, the Salem mining operation there for many years. Frankly, if you read through the Cape Cod Commission, you'll see they made a variety of findings that will improve the ecological condition of the land and would sequester carbon, and all of which they thought was very positive from a redevelopment standpoint and from their own climate goals that they now have in the regional policy plan. The project will result in improvements in pedestrian infrastructure. It kind of completes some of the sidewalk work that was done under phase 1 and under other projects. And so with this one, that infrastructure now will stretch all the way over to Finney's Lane, and therefore the option, if one wants to walk through the sidewalk system, of getting over to the Hathaway's Pond area. And we're also bringing one section of Wilkins into compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. I know that was mentioned at site plan review. The Disability Rights Committee was there and appreciative of that requirement. The project will utilize high efficiency electric pumps, heat pumps. So it's an all electric, all of the buildings are all electric again, as they were in phase 1, reducing the regional reliance on fossil fuels. The project, as I indicated, is walkable. This relates to the pedestrian infrastructure, to retail dining, and it's also located within walking distance of public bus routes, and again, the Hathaway's Pond area. And finally, as a highlight, we will not use nitrogen fertilizers over the entire site, other than the initial planting, as I've indicated. And that's both on the Barnstable Harbor embayment side, the 3/4 portion of the site I showed you with that dotted line, and on the Lewis Bay embayment side, which has a nitrogen issue currently. So those are just some of the project benefits that we saw. There were others that were listed in the Cape Cod Commission decision itself. I review those, Mr. Chairman, because I think those, together with the presentation that we've made, allow you to find, subject to what we hear from public comment, that we can satisfy the requirement and we're not substantially more detrimental than neighborhood, and we meet the public good. So I think that's our presentation. At this point, I'm going to stop, Mr. Chairman. As Mr. Tuig indicated, there are folks here from NED. The site engineer is here from Tetra Tech. The traffic engineer is here from Vanessa. We're happy to take questions from any of the board members at this point, or whenever you determine it's appropriate.
Thank you, Attorney Ford. Board member, does someone mind unsharing this screen? We can see everyone. Thank you. Board members, any questions for the applicant at this point? So the process here, we're going to open public comment in a second. We'll listen to public comment, but if we have any, we're not going to make any decisions today, and we probably won't deliberate today. It's more information gathering today. And then we'll have public comment, and Attorney Ford can come back with responses to some public comment, and we can consider all of it. But anyone have any questions for the applicant, regarding the project?
I'm going to hold for now.
I have one hyper-technical one, if I may.
Go for it.
There's one requirement in that ordinance you quoted that you did not address. I'm assuming the project proposes to comply with it, but it's subsection 8, which reads, no living units shall be constructed or used below the ground level. I'm assuming that's the case. Can you confirm?
Yeah, I'm sorry. May I respond, Mr. Chairman, to the staff?
Yeah, go for it. Yes.
Yeah, all of the buildings are built on slabs, Mr. Allison. Sorry, I should have covered that. Good point.
Thank you. But I'll defer for later.
I've got a couple questions, Attorney Ford, and again, you guys can bring them back next time. I don't I don't see on, can you just explain the 1,000 feet? I don't see on the site plan the measurement of the 1,000 feet from Kids Hill Road. Can you just walk us through that? Or I don't know if the engineer could bring it up and give us that measurement.
Essentially all of the site is.
Yeah, I think essentially all of the site is in it, Mr. Chairman. I don't know, are we able to put a site plan up? We're gonna try and get a site plan up for you. Maybe I can show you exactly where the line is, but it's virtually all of the site that's in it. Location that has the plan set.
The graphic that I thought would be, I think it,
I think, Mr. Chairman, I know we have it on some graphic. I'm not sure we have it readily available, but we certainly, I can represent to you that virtually all of the site is beyond 1,000 feet, but we can have that for the next meeting on a graphic for you, if that's okay.
Well, I guess that's my question. Can you walk me through that? Because, oh, so you're saying it's inside 1,000 feet or outside 1,000 feet?
It's outside 1,000 feet, and that's why it triggers the special permit.
But I read 240 38(1)(c) says the principal permitted use is allowed in the mixed use subzone shall include multifamily, blah, blah, blah. Additionally, multifamily dwellings, apartments on a lot within 1,000 feet of Kids Hill Road. Am I reading that incorrectly? Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, the ones within was phase one, those were by right with no special permit. So that's how phase one was constructed.
So we're drawing a line between 1 and 2 that's exactly at 1,000 feet.
Yeah, it's just about right at that point.
it's on this graphic, it is just about this, this southeasterly boundary, southwesterly boundary
Yeah.
of phase one.
Okay. So all of
that's why phase one was all within 1,000 feet. It was allowed as a matter of right once it got commission approval. Beyond 1,000 feet, it triggers the special permit.
okay.
No, but okay. I guess I read it the way you did, Jake, that
Yeah.
if it is within 1,000, you got to comply with the provisions below.
Yeah, can you reference which code you're looking at, Attorney Ford? So you're looking at 240 38 1 C? Or which?
38.1, I think it's right in here. Give me just a minute to get it in front of me.
Or are we going to F?
Yeah, so we're under 240 38.1 F.
F.
Multifamily dwellings shall be allowed by special permit in the mixed-use zone if any portion of the lot is set back more than 1,000 feet from Kids Hill Road.
Okay.
So setback more than 1,000 feet from Kids Hill Road, and the project meets the dimensional requirements. That's why I went through all those dimensional requirements to show you that we meet it.
Yeah.
That's the special permit provision that we're under.
Okay. Just a few, do you know what the dates or dates of the meetings, the council's discussion in October? Was it all in October of 2021?
I just know that it was approved on October 21st, 2021.
Okay. I just want to try to understand the intent of the council when they were approving this. Is there going to be solar on the roof of this thing?
It's solar ready. The solar is not going on to start.
Okay. And then there's a garage parking space, one for every unit?
No, the garages, maybe I can turn to somebody from Hanover for the number of spaces in the garages.
Steve Dazzo, I think, is on the line. Steve, could you answer that?
Yes, I could, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Steve Dazzo with the Hanover Company. There are 46 garage spaces and they are dispersed in freestanding single-story garages amongst the surface parking. So they're being pointed out on the screen right now.
So will those be a separate rent?
They would be, yes. So those would be if a resident would like an enclosed garage parking space, they have the option to rent a space that's in one of those garages.
So will the affordable tenants will be allowed those at an affordable rate?
I believe that is how it works for the affordable program, Mr. Chairman, but we'll comply with all the EOHLC requirements as it relates to access to those garages for the affordable units.
Okay. And then just, I guess we're going to get a sewer capacity report in the future, Attorney Ford. It sounds like that will come back at some point, but I guess
Yeah.
I would hope that it sounds like it will, but want to hope that includes an overall capacity of anything feeding from that direction. You know, what percentage are you guys consuming, and what DPW's expansion plans are after you guys come online? Is it going to pinch out, you know, the rest of the lots in the industrial park or any other large scale developments if they're going to be squeezed off? I guess that would be my question there.
Yeah, I think we're going to file that report with DPW. We're working with them on it. And it turns out that I think we're going to show that we're a very small percentage of what goes through that line.
And then, so water, the next steps with the water that's following as well. There'll be additional report on that.
There already is an email that was provided at site plan review from the water department, Sean Anderson, the water superintendent, indicating that there is sufficient water supply under their water withdrawal permit that currently exists. And we've been working with them now to simply finalize the water main system throughout the site and the location of the hydrants and the loop system.
Okay. I didn't see that in our files, but maybe it's in here somewhere.
Yeah.
But I guess, you know, we'll get to that. So that's the only questions that I had. Do other board members have questions for the applicant?
Actually, maybe I just have two real quick, Mr. Chairman. So will this phase 2 also be serviced by Barnstable Village Fire, or is there a line draw here that puts it somewhere in Hyannis?
No, this is still the Barnstable Fire District.
Okay, Barnstable Village.
And that's what we've been working with for water.
Okay. And are there any town required infrastructure improvements as far as, I know you're using heat pumps for the majority of the project. Is there anything that the town is required or a cost to the town as far as, transformers or anything non-paid by the project that would be on, that would be paid for by the town as far as bringing power into this second phase?
I'm not sure I heard the end of your question, but I'm not.
I'm just wondering if there's any infrastructure requirements from the town.
I guess the answer is no.
No, we're not. The town doesn't have to do any infrastructure to support power or transformers or anything like that.
Okay, great, thanks.
And Attorney Ford, I know Chief Beal didn't speak to it, but is the expectation, does Barnstable Fire have the sufficient apparatuses if Hyannis Fire didn't exist, would they be able to sustain this property from a height risk level and ladder trucks, et cetera?
Chief Beal has not expressed any concerns to the applicant throughout this process. We've been working with him for months that he doesn't have sufficient apparatus to respond to something at this site.
I mean, I guess with its proximity to Hyannis, I feel like this is going to lean on Hyannis from a response perspective. I would love something in writing from Hyannis Fire, or just something that if Chief Beal says no, we will not rely on Hyannis Fire for response to this property. That would be helpful, both from a rescue, fire, et cetera, as the tax burden will not be paying into Hyannis Fire. So I guess I would just ask that that be clarified, that all services.
Yeah, no, I can take that up with Chief Beal, and I know they have agreements between the districts to respond when each other needs something in an emergency, and as do towns between each other. And I mean, I think in terms of tax burden, you saw the tax number that this will generate. This is property that hasn't been generating any taxes to the town or the fire district. So this would be new income to both.
Yeah, I just see it as a municipal service burden and making sure that we're covering that. And then I guess, why was Hyannis Water included in your site plan review? See, like, is there a reason?
Yeah, because Hyannis Water generally sits on all site plan reviews. I mean, they just happened to be there. There may have been other projects on, and Hans made a comment, but they weren't reviewing it formally.
Okay. Anyone else from the board have any questions before we open for public comment?
Yeah, I do.
Mr. Chairman. Oh, go ahead, Natalie.
Okay. Yeah, I just wondered, the number of affordable units just doesn't seem to shake out. What can we do to increase that? When I did, let's see, when I took 13% of 350, I get 45 units, and you've only got 42 there. I'd really like to see it up, up over 50, or even 250, if we could get it. I mean, TOO. It just seems like a small amount for the mitigation that we're getting.
320 units, not 350.
320, right. Not 325.
Not 350.
Right. It's 320. May I respond, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 320 units. And,
Oh, okay.
And the 13,
all right. Oh, yeah, I was doing
and the
it against
13% is
Yeah.
42.
Okay.
And that's a number that a lot of time and effort we spent with your legislative body, the council, in coming to that as a number that worked. Keeping in mind that unlike many of the affordable projects in town, where there are a lot of subsidies, either through the state, federal government, or the local community preservation committee, or your local affordable housing trust, there are no subsidies for any of these units. These are all being paid for completely by the developer, even though they'll be deed restricted like any other affordable unit.
Okay, so they will be deed restricted.
Absolutely.
We'll have, yes.
Yes.
But just for a point of clarity there, 32 of them are required by inclusion. So you're really only giving 10 units. And I think we also have to remember that, yes, we are getting 13%, but 10% of that is just keeping up with the number of units that are going online, because our affordable housing inventory is calculated by total number of units online. And so as we raise the bar, we're not getting a big spread here. We're not getting a big gap. But again, I will go back and watch the council meeting from 2021. That they created this, and at that time they created that this was a negotiated number that they felt comfortable with, and that's not really completely what's before us. So,
Okay, I had one more question. Just how many do they have a count on how many bedrooms and what the square footage, the average square footage might be of the units?
Steve will do that.
Could you do that? Or we can certainly get back to you, or Steve, if you have it, fine.
Yes, I do have it here, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay.
yeah, go for it.
So there are a total of 465 bedrooms across all 320 apartment homes. That total is, I believe, 191 one-bedroom units, 113 two-bedroom units, and 16 three-bedroom units.
And how many parking spaces?
476 total parking spaces.
If I may just pick up on that thread, do you know how the affordable units fall within each of those categories? In other words, is it apportioned across, or is it weighed towards one size versus others? You understand what I'm asking?
Yes, I do. The affordable units, the mix of affordable units are proportionate to the market rate units. We do have to go through a process with EOHLC to identify those units, which will happen at a later date.
What's your parking calculation? You're trying to hit 1.5 per unit?
There are 476 total spaces. I believe it's 1.49 per unit.
Does that include the garages?
It does, yes.
So sorry, but I'm not sure I understood the answer to the question about the allocation of affordable units among the classification of each apartment. In other words, could it be the case that they're all in the 3 bedrooms, or will there be some effort to allocate them across the categories? Is I guess what I'm asking.
And you're exactly right. They need to be allocated proportionately amongst the 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and 3 bedroom units. So there will be all different unit types that are affordable.
Okay, and a related question: the enclosed garages, those in any way linked to the affordable units? In other words, I know those are deed restricted, the affordable units, but could the garages be linked to those, or are they available basically first come, first serve at market rate?
They're available first come, first serve at a market rate, but I believe an affordable resident would pay an affordable rate for a garage, but it would be an additional payment if they requested one. But again, we would need to comply with EOHLC's requirements that will be determined in the regulatory agreement.
Okay. And one last question. Sorry, I thought I might have said I was done. Will all of these of the 42 units go towards the subsidized housing inventory for the town? In other words,
yes, they will.
Okay, we'll increase our total by 42.
Correct.
Thank you.
Natalie, did you have another question? Or
Yeah, no, I'm all set. Thanks.
all right, Aaron, go ahead.
Just for the record here, I'm curious about the relationship between the Hanover project and this new one. I forgive me if I'm wrong and I misheard, but I thought that the Hanover might have been described as luxury, whereas this one's going to be more geared towards workforce. So can you just talk a little bit quickly about, just for the record, sort of what the rents were or are at the Hanover for these units, and what you anticipate rents to be for new, phase 2 here?
Go ahead, Attorney Porter, whoever would like to speak.
I think somebody from Hanover may respond to that.
Sure, I'm happy to take that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Please.
I'm happy to report a range of rents at Hanover Hyannis, the project that's open and operating. The 1 bedrooms for the market rate units are generally between $2,500 to $3,000 per month. The 2 beds are $3,000 to $3,600 per month, and the 3 bedrooms are $3,600 to $4,200, generally in that range. But again, those are market rents that vary depending on demand. The intent is that this second phase is a little bit more attainable, and we have made some design efficiency moves in order to allow that to happen. Again, the rents are driven by the market, so we intend them to track relatively closely to the first project, but they're not determined at this point in time. They'll be determined when the project is open.
And so what's the square footage of a 1 bedroom, for instance?
The average 1 bedroom square footage for this project is 772.
That's it for me.
Mr. Chairman, I have some questions.
Go ahead, Larry.
All right. I understand that you've been working with the fire department. Do you have an approved fire alarm system plan? And is the building sprinkled in addition? And I'll give you all my questions. As far as parking spaces and garages, if a resident does not rent a space in the garage, where would they park? And if anybody considered the impact to the school system, I mean, it's quite a few units, and I don't know how many children are going to be there, but I would think it's going to be a significant impact to the school system. One other question: what is solar ready? All right, how do you wire an apartment for future solar? Do you have inverters for everybody?
Is that the whole list?
That's the list.
Okay.
Yeah, Attorney Ford, if you want to delegate that out, some of those questions.
Yeah, so maybe I think most of them are for Steve.
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Go ahead, Steve.
I don't know if Steve kept track of.
I mean, really, the fire alarm,
Yeah.
sprinkler. I mean, I think
So,
you got a
yes.
report on the surface parking spaces.
Right.
The school system, we did a complete fiscal study, including impacts of police, fire, and school system. So if you want to answer through those, and then what is solar ready, I think was the fifth one.
Right, so I'll take them in order. So the first question was related to the fire alarm and fire sprinkler. So we will prepare an NFPA 241 plan. The building will be full code 13. It will be sprinklered. So we will work with the fire department through that process. So that was the first. The second was relative to the parking spaces. So again, there are only 46 garage spaces available. If a resident chooses a garage space, they would have to do that on a first come, first served basis. And if they're all 46 are occupied, then they'll park in the surface lot. The surface lot contains the majority of the parking spaces. So again, there are only 46 garage spaces available. Impact to the school system, Mr. Tuhig just responded, that was studied as part of the fiscal impact analysis. And then the final question was around the definition of what is solar ready. So that entails running conduit to the roof and having the structural support in place so that at some point in the future, when we do negotiate the contract with a solar provider to install PV panels, that the buildings are ready to accept them.
Well, those inverters are going to be pretty big and take up a lot of space too. Have you dedicated space to that?
I would have to discuss with the engineering team, but I believe that would be part of being solar ready.
So have the
Just
infrastructure.
having a space plan.
I guess just to jump on there real quick, why not have that negotiated ahead of time? Or why not have that as part of why do it later? Because it probably will never get done at that point. If you got residents there, you got people living underneath, why not build them with the panels in place? Just curious, I'm just wondering.
So one item that's not reflected in the site plan is there are wells on the roofs to house mechanical equipment. So the mechanical equipment is screened from the public view. So that takes up quite a bit of space. When we run the analysis, there's very limited space for the solar panels. So we would like to do it at a point in time when the PV panels are more efficient to collect solar energy.
Would you only be using the PV in common areas, or would the units also have the benefit of PV? And if they do, how are you going to meter it?
I do not have an answer for that at this point in time, given we haven't negotiated a contract with a PV provider or evaluated exactly how that would work just yet. We just like the infrastructure to be in place so that when we do make that determination at some point in the future, we are ready to accept the panels.
And I did have one final question regarding fire alarm, everything. Is there going to be like various muster points where, you have an emergency and people that you report to that muster point so you have everybody?
Well, that's a good question. It's impossible to track residents among 320 apartment homes, but that's the intent of the fire code, which we will comply with.
Yeah, because I know that various apartment complexes, maybe not in this area, but do have muster points.
Yeah, I
Yes,
think
well,
that's
thank you.
something that the fire department and building commissioner will, make sure it's in compliance with state law.
Mr. Chairman, could I
go
just, on the question on parking spaces, there are 448 total spaces. That includes the garages. The requirement is 1.3 spaces per dwelling unit in the ordinance. So that's 416. So there's an extra 32 spaces beyond that for guests.
Yeah.
Just to give you an
I didn't
idea.
see the surface parking lot.
You have 476 spaces, I think. You actually have more than that. Because I think, unless you're not counting your
476? Okay.
476 is what the plan says. Yeah.
Oh, I wasn't counting the garages. So there's 476 including the garages, correct?
Yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah, so you're just about at 1.5 per unit, just shy. But yeah, only 1.3 is required.
Right.
Can you make the study you did on the impact of the school system? Could you include that in your
We'll
packet?
get that to the board for your record, the fiscal impact study, so you can see that. And if you have questions on it, we'll answer it next time.
Thank you very
We'll get it to
much.
the board.
Thank you.
And then, Mr. Dazzo, there's no plan for battery energy storage, correct?
Correct. Not at this point in time, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Any other board members have questions before we open to public comment? We're not going to close the public hearing today, so we can come back with more questions in 2 weeks or whenever our next meeting is. So no more questions. All right. So we'll open for public comment. We did receive a letter from Michael Loff in support of the project, leaning on the fact that he really needs it he's the president and CEO of Cape Cod Healthcare, leaning on the fact that he needs this kind of housing for doctors and other healthcare workers. We did receive a letter from the Dugases. Are they here? They requested I read the letter. If they're not here, I will read it into the record. This is dated April 18th, 2025. This letter is written to express our arguments, requests, and views regarding the project known as Wilkins Housing Phase 2, which is proposed development of regional impact, which is before you to seek a special permit. Please accept the contents of this letter as our testimony concerning the review of this 320-unit multifamily development of 5 buildings and accessory structures to be erected on 15.1 acres in the Barnstable Village District. We request that this letter be read in the record at the public meeting, May 28, 2025. Recently, Barnstable Village has been subjected to a dramatic increase in multifamily housing developments, which are putting a strain on our small village resources, water service, and public safety response, and causing increased costs to taxpayers. As you proceed with your review of the application, we request that the Cape Cod Commission conduct a survey to investigate what percentage of affordable units currently exist in Barnstable. We are not opposed to permitting of this project if it is composed of 100% affordable units, not just 20%. They should be affordable given the current call for affordable units. We also request that a traffic survey study be conducted on the entire town of Barnstable to report on the current conditions. During the day, residents are experiencing traffic that resembles a parking lot. Moving from place to place is difficult and time-consuming, therefore causing direct burden on taxpayers as they attempt to conduct daily living tasks that require transportation within the town of Barnstable roads. If the Cape Cod Commission were to approve this project, the following conditions should be part of said approval. The developer Wilkins Lane Properties LLC should pay mitigation for the following issues of impact: any and all costs added for the roads in Barnstable; 2, any and all sidewalks; 3, any and all traffic lights; 4, any and all costs added for sewerage, water, including any costs related to improvements needed to the infrastructure; 5, pay their percentage of increased police protection response that such development will cost the town in perpetuity; pay their fair share of all increases in educational costs to Barnstable schools to educate students added to the current student enrollment numbers; pay their proportional share of costs of removal, transportation of trash off Cape. 8, all impacts to the public taxpayers should be borne by the developer. In addition, this project is going to require servicing from the Barnstable Village Fire Department. As has been stated during public meetings, this is an impetus for the need to build a new fire station in Barnstable Village. The Barnstable Village resident taxpayers should not have to bear these excessive costs brought on by such development projects. Any and all costs of said new state-of-the-art fire station project should be the burden of the developer. They should pay all costs, therefore, and staffing of the same. The developer should pay for any and all additional ambulances that may be needed to service this project and staffing as such in perpetuity. The 15.1 acres needed for this project should be revert back to open space given the intention of the LaRusso Foundation, who owned all of the land in Independence Park. We frequently pass by a sign that may go unnoticed within the industrial park, which states, "We abuse land because we regard it as a commodity belonging to us. When we see land as a community to which we belong, we may begin to use it and love and respect." Therefore, as part of the conditions for approval of this project, the developer should pay mitigation for open space. In other words, there should be 15.1 acres of land acquired by the developer and then set aside to be designated as open space anywhere in the town of Barnstable. If the Cape Cod Commission were to approve this project, these items must be the condition of approval, and decision is appealed. The developer must pay all costs here. And this sincerely, Joseph F. Dugas and Marcy Dugas. Joseph is at 30 Sunset Lane, Barnstable, Mass., and Marcy is at 45 Dorcas Drive in Barnstable. This is also sent to the town manager and legal department. All right, we'll open for public comment. I see one hand, Catherine Ledeck, if you'd like to go first.
It's Counselor Lucky.
Oh, sorry.
Counselor Lucky was there first.
Okay. Sorry, Counselor Lucky, you can start us off. My screen is jumping all over the place with people.
Okay, I guess I'm unmuted. Okay, thank you, Jake. And thank you to the presenters on this. I have a lot of comments. I really appreciate the letter you just read, Jake. I think they hit the nail on the head. From my experience working with or watching the 35 Scudder project, when Lennar and then they were QMC, when they did the financial analysis, they came up with a benefit to the town in taxes of about $40,000, which is less than one house on Seaview Avenue in Osterville. So we could build a house on Seaview Avenue in Osterville and get more taxes than we would from this. I know Attorney Ford had mentioned, I think, $850,000 in taxes. I don't agree with that number. I think you owe us a very thorough analysis, taking into account what the letter writer said. We have to account for all the services. You have to do the same analysis that Quarterra did. I would like that analysis submitted to our Comprehensive Financial Advisory Committee for an independent review, our CFAC. And I think that needs to be looked at very carefully because taxes are so important. We're perhaps looking at an override for our sewer, and just throwing $850,000 out there is not going to meet the task on this. So I'll just start with that because the letter writer spoke so beautifully about it. But that's what I would request, a thorough review that goes through our CFAC committee for independent analysis on that. I am a town councilor. I was not a town councilor in 2021 when this zoning was approved. I did watch the hearings. They went late into the night. There was one dissenting vote on the council, and that dissension had to do with the flooding, the flood zone at Cape Cod Hospital. That particular councilor thought it was not right for the hospital to give this up and to build in a flood zone. So there was a dissension. There was a lot of discussion to get to the 13%. And this again was, 4 years ago now. A lot has changed, a lot. We've done the downtown zoning, which has given us a plethora of market rate units, all rentals, and I think we're a little bit saturated at the moment. So what I would like to do, and I think Natalie touched on it, I think we're inadequate now. We're 4 years later, and I think we need another 3%. And Attorney Ford mentioned it. We're kind of at an attainable level now. I would like to see 3% at 100% AMI. I think that's a reasonable thing for you to do, and you're only giving us 10 extra, as Chairman Dewey said, and 3% at 100% AMI should be very doable for you to do. Just prior to this zoning meeting, there was the, what do you call it? The amnesty, the affordable homes in homes. I'm struggling with the name of it, but people are coming out of that because the state has just mandated the ADUs, and people are transitioning to ADUs because it's tough. And you guys know this because you work in this space. It's very onerous to work within the requirements, to do the deed restrictions, do the lotteries, do everything for affordable. But I think this comes with your size. You mentioned up front how large you are, how much you work with hospitals, and you have the capacity. You probably have the back staff that can run the lotteries and things like that. And a lot of our residents are coming out of the affordable apartment program and going into the ADUs, which the state has given them the opportunity to do. So you would really help out the town if you would give us, again, I'm giving you a break, 100% AMI to really help us out because we are getting so many market rate in Hyannis downtown zoning. I'd like to have just a few questions, don't have to answer now, but we hear a lot about the hospital. We have support from the hospital. We always do. I mean, this was their land here. What percent, you mentioned it, what percentage of Cape Cod Hospital employees are living in Hanover? What's the percentage there? Okay, and Attorney Ford, you made a big point about talking about the sidewalks, going to Hathaway's Pond, the dog parks over there, that kind of thing. Every time I drive there, I never see anybody walking. Of course, I'm not driving there 24/7. But do you have any data on how many people are walking from Hanover? I'd be curious. I mean, you've had this open for a while. What's the data? Are there any data on that? I talked about the taxes, CFAC, talked about the 3%. Oh, here's the other thing. As a town councilor, I always try to take the 10,000-foot view. I am from Precinct 3 in Hyannis. We have an enormous problem in Hyannis with home occupations. And what that means is we have ordinance to allow people to have businesses in their homes. Some of these businesses have gotten a little bit out of control, I'll say, okay? And it's causing a lot of friction. Some of my streets in my precinct look like Thornton Drive. You haven't mentioned Thornton Drive. Thornton Drive is just down the road from you. And what Thornton Drive is, in all of its ugliness, it's beautiful. And you know why it's beautiful? It is the only part of Independence Park that is living up to the initial rationale for Independence Park being created. It was created and named Independence Park so our residents could be independent owners of their businesses and thrive and work, okay? And we have a really huge problem with not enough contractor base. Now, you are in there. I mean, the hospital came in here and did this, and that was to get out of the flood zone and some other things. But that's all passed. And now Independence Park is big box stores and multifamily. There's Everly up there. There's some other things. What about our residents who wanted to use Independence Park for their livelihood? There's nowhere else. And people always forget there's a big old airport there, and they need the clear zones for the runway 15 to come in and land, and for runway 33 to take off. So that wipes out a huge portion of Independence Park. So you've got a real sweet spot there. So that's what I'm saying. You need to give back to the town because we're suffering in many ways for our residents not to be able to use Independence Park as it should have been. Not your fault, but you're here, we're here, this is the situation. So I would like you to give a little bit in that area. And I certainly agree with the comments on the solar. I commented at the Cape Cod Commission review of this project, put the solar in now because you'll never put it in. I think one of the zoning board members said that. You'll never put it in. You don't even know how you'd put it in. Just do it. You can't have a better spot for solar than where you are. And let's face it, your buildings look like they could be anywhere. And I'm not critical of that. I'm actually for it, okay? Because there is no charm whatsoever where you're building. There's that BJ's, there's a Stop and Shop, no charm. This could be anywhere in the United States. So let's not think about charm. Let's think about functionality. And the other request I'd have for you, which has to do with the solar, is you mentioned the rents in Hanover. Could you come back next time with the utility bills? The utility bills for, the 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom. They're all electric. Our electric rates here are incredibly high. And if you could do some solar, wow. I mean, you'd be hitting it out of the ballpark for our residents. And Oh, the last thing, I'm sorry, I'm taking some time. But again, I get the 10,000-foot view. Our local comprehensive plan has been going on for 3 years. It was just approved by the planning committee this past week. And one of the areas they specifically said they wanted to study was exactly where you're building. Because everyone is now looking at Independence Park and they want to take a look at that. And that's why I say Thornton Drive is beautiful to me. It's absolutely gorgeous. I wish we had 3 or 4 more of them. And that's why you have to be very sensitive. You're going in there, you're going to be building where they want to take a look, and we all have to work together to use what few resources. And I see Kathy there, so I always like to quote that Cape Cod Commission, 86% of our land is gone. We have 14% to work with, 14%, and we have enormous problems. So let's work together, pull together, and make the best of this. So please, let's keep this discussion going, come back with some hard data, and keep this moving and come up with a good solution. And I will say, it's a good project, you put up the benefits, but there has to be more. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Lutke. David, do you have an order you want to go in? You can see things better than I can. Squares move around on my screen.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you could hear me. This is John Littman. I have no way of raising my hand, and several other people have reported the same to me. I don't know how we can handle that. I can speak, and I also don't see my face on the screen.
Yeah, your camera's off. Chairman Dewey, I wrote down a couple of names at the beginning before it got super crazy. Let's get to those people and then maybe take the people that had their hand raised and then go from there.
You can just call on me when you're ready.
Public comment tonight. So if someone can't stay or wants to, we're gonna do in person at our next meeting as well. So this isn't gonna move anywhere tonight.
Okay. So first we got Ben Feller from Hyannis.
Just state your name and address, and then you can speak.
See here? Says did he drop off? Did he drop off? He's been cutting in and out, maybe. All right, let's go to the next person. John Littman. Do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. I know you can't see me, but if you can hear me, that's good. Again, we are having some of these technical problems. So I just want to read a letter actually that was forwarded to me today by Mike Loff from Cape Cod Healthcare. And he writes that I'm writing to express Cape Cod Healthcare's strong and unequivocal support for the Wilkins Lane housing project, Phase 2 special permit. The project will bring countless benefits to the community and contribute greatly to Cape Cod Healthcare's ability to attract and retain high-quality clinicians on Cape Cod. Several of our new physicians have benefited from Phase 1 of this project and secured housing that would otherwise not have been available to them in this area. I have no doubt that without that housing, we would have lost a good number of these clinicians to other parts of the state or the country. The project area is centrally located, served by water, sewer, and public transportation, making it safe and environmentally appropriate for this type of housing. As already demonstrated by the commission's and the town's approval of Phase 1. This project will provide reduced market rate rents as compared to the previous project. It's not luxury housing. It is housing our mid-income workforce needs and can afford, but is almost unavailable on Cape Cod. Many healthcare workers fall squarely into that mid-income range and will surely benefit from this housing so close to work. We cannot solve our workforce housing shortage by building more single-family homes. That would take decades and it's far too expensive. We need housing now for those who provide our medical care, teach our children, and staff our restaurants and stores. If there is no place for these people to live, our desperately needed workforce will continue to leave Cape Cod in large numbers. That, of course, is from Michael Loff, President and CEO of Cape Cod Healthcare. And I don't know if she was able to get on the line either, but Jocelyn Marshall, who's a resident of Marston Mills, forwarded this to me. I'll read just a couple of sentences. As someone who lives and works in this community, I see firsthand how the lack of affordable housing is affecting our neighbors, our workforce, and our families. Cape Cod is a beautiful place, but it is becoming increasingly difficult for people, especially young families, essential workers, and seniors on fixed incomes, to afford to live here. Affordable housing is not just about buildings. It's about stability, opportunity, and dignity. It's about making sure our community remains diverse, vibrant, and sustainable for generations to come. Thank you for your time, and please support the Wilkins Lane project. That is, again, Jocelyn Marshall from Marston's Mills, and that is the end of it, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lippman.
Next, we got Bob Eckel.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name's Bob Eckel. I'm the director of the Cape Cod Tech Foundation in Hyannis. As I'm sure most of you know, the Tech has been training our year-round workforce for now 50 years. We serve the communities of Mashpee to Provincetown. 190 of our young men and women are from Barnstable, and by far the leading sender for students to Cape Tech. I'm speaking on behalf of this project tonight and like projects, as the gentleman that just spoke suggests. Our young men and women are trained electricians, plumbers, carpenters, on down the list, auto techs. But if they can't afford a place to live in their 20s, we continue to lose these young men and women, and they have to move off Cape. So I speak in behalf of this project and like projects. Without this type of density and affordable component, anecdotally, I can tell you a lot of these workers, year-round workforce, come back to the Cape later on, but it's a challenge and will continue to be. As I think you all know, about 60% of our year-round workforce currently comes over the bridge each morning, and that number will continue to go up unless there's affordable housing like is provided by a project like this. So I thank you for the time tonight, and appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Eckel.
Next, we got John Wheatley. John. I don't know.
I think he left.
Okay. I don't see him. Okay. Somebody by the name of Greg. I don't know if he's still here. I am not seeing a Greg either. Okay. Catherine Clark, you're up next. You got 3 minutes.
Thank you, and members of the board. My name is Catherine Clark, and I'm a resident of the town of Barnstable, and I work at Housing Assistance Corporation. I'm speaking in support of the Wilkins Lane project. I care deeply about the future of our community, not just professionally, but personally. Cape Cod is my hometown. I grew up here. I live here, I shop here, and my neighbors and friends are first responders, teachers, and small business owners. Through my work at Housing Assistance, I see the direct impact of the housing crisis right here in our town and across the region. Families who have lived here for generations are being priced out. Local businesses are cutting hours, are closing altogether because they can't find or keep staff. And essential workers, those who teach our kids, care for our aging family members, and keep our community running 365 days a year, are struggling to find a place to live. The Wilkins Lane project is a direct response to these challenges. It provides diverse, attainable housing that is urgently needed now. This is not just about building housing, it's about preserving the character and sustainability of our town by ensuring that people who work here can also live here. We need smart, efficient developments like the Wilkins Lane project, housing that serves a range of incomes and household types and that makes better use of limited land. Without projects like this, our community will continue to lose its workforce and with it, the services, connections, and vitality that make this town special. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Ben Feller is back, so he's up next. He was the first on my list.
Ben, just state your name and address of the record.
Who did you call?
Ben Feller, you're muted, Ben.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Ben Feller. I speak on support of the Wilkins Lane project. I am a Cape Cod resident of 5 years. I'm a resident of Hyannis for the last 20 years. And 33 years ago, I moved to Cape Cod and was able to find affordable housing. And as a clerk with a major supermarket retailer on Cape Cod, was able to make my way from the position of a clerk to the district director of 17 stores. Which employs over 3,500 people. We could be the largest employer on Cape Cod. And quite honestly, that's not something that we're able to do today. So I have store managers that drive over the bridge from New Bedford, from Fall River, from all over. We have J1 students to the tune of just about 1,000 that we have to house. The budget is substantial. And the real problem is during the wintertime, because just staffing and running our stores and having people so that customers don't have to wait in line and get the service they need is very difficult. So I speak in support. I appreciate with the project, I did some pre-reading and the 13% versus the required 10% of affordable housing. You know, I wish that were higher, but I do appreciate the 13%. I certainly would like to Bob Eckel, I believe is the name. My daughter went to Cape Cod Tech and she's successful and she was able to live with me and learn skills to give her a good career. So it's all about affordable housing. You know, the median, the cost of a home is around $700,000 and it's just going away quick. So we need to operate. We need a workforce. We need places to live, and I'm in support. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, that's the end of my list. Jake, you want to start going to people with their hand raised?
Sure. I'll just go in the order that my little screen is. So it looks like Tony Shepley is in the top left corner with his hand raised.
My favorite place to be. Thank you very much, members of the board. You know what? I can speak to you tonight really in support of Wilkins Lane Phase 2, but I can speak to you as an employer, a resident of Barnstable, a Barnstable taxpayer, and a Barnstable parent. The need for housing is pretty clear. I don't think we're going to argue that. We need market rate, we need affordable. The lack of supply, if we are honest, is a little bit of our own doing. Things like 2-acre zoning, NIMBYism, desire to freeze Cape Cod back to where it was in the Patty Payne. That's all quaint. It doesn't really translate terribly well to 2025. So we're taking a little bit of a risk with quality of life, supply of services, as we just heard in the supermarket sector, and losing our youth. And this is what concerns me. My kids grew up here. They are pretty well convinced that they can't afford to live here, that they'll never own a house here. And the scary thing is their friends feel the same way. Employers, and I am one, so I can speak as one, employers are caught in this crossfire. It's really hard to find good talent and to employ and retain good talent when talent cannot find housing. So Wilkins Lane makes a lot of sense for Barnstable. It's on the sewer. It's convenient to the town. It's convenient to shopping, public transportation. It's attractive. It actually looks quite nice. It's very well planned. And I think it's pretty tasteful. Most importantly, it's zoned correctly and it's built by an experienced, proven, reputable, responsible developer. Wilkins Lane is going to add to the housing supply, and it's going to do it efficiently without creating a lot more suburban sprawl, which, by the way, has gotten us into some of the problems that we're into already today. But lastly, my favorite point, this is the perfect reuse for an old gravel pit. I've known this piece of property for 60 years, and it's a wonderful finish for that piece of land. So I ask for your approval of the Wilkins Lane Phase 2 project tonight because it's important for Barnstable, it's important for our residents, and it is terribly important for our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shepley. All right, next up I've got Cynthia. I don't have a last name. Cynthia, you're in my top left corner.
Hi. I'll put myself on here if I can. Here we go. Okay. Just so you don't have to look at a blank thing. My name's Cynthia Cole, Barnstable Village. And Mr. Chairman, committee members, thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I assume this project will be approved at some point, but I do find refreshing to hear the questions of your board members. I certainly wish this hearing had been held before the Cape Cod Commission, not after, because you certainly are all asking a lot more questions than anybody from the Cape Cod Commission asked, with the exception of Catherine Ledeck, which, by the way, she was going to be called on before and she wasn't. She should be heard from. I will say that I think that density in housing is good. It uses less land, requires less roads, etc. But in giving a developer the right to build 10 or more units an acre, the developer should give back to the community that has been so generous. This is where most everything about both Hanover 1 and Hanover 2 has gone wrong. In speaking to the special permit that you will issue to the New England development tonight, the proposed development is unattractive. It's an everywhere USA maximize profit way. This does impact the community as we all look at it, or will look at it every day and be reminded that community character means nothing to the Cape Cod Commission. In terms of mitigation, the developer has been asked to pay for some traffic updates and a pittance towards pollution in the Lewis Bay embayment and nothing towards water recharge and embayment in the land which the development takes place, which is the Barnstable Harbor embayment. Other than taxes and fees, the developer makes no other contribution towards schools, the environment, or other public services. The residents of Precinct 1, which is Barnstable Village and Independence Park, just approved a $35 million fire station to accommodate all the new non-commercial development taking place in Independence Park. This development will have an immediate impact on the sewage treatment plant and the effluent that results from this. This development will have an immediate impact on our water supply. And while all of these things can be addressed at this point, our water supply is almost at the brink. So this project will fall within the permitted amount of gallons taken, but anything beyond that will not. And we will all, as a community, have to pay the price for that if we can even find the water. Yes, the developer will pay taxes and fees, but that is it. There's no giving back to a community that will service it while New England Development takes all of its profits over the bridge. This development, like all of the others, is connected to nothing. It is in the middle of an industrial park meant for economic development. I think that has been very squandered in this. In terms of affordable housing, I fail to see how 280 market rate units out of 320 is an affordable housing project, which further exacerbates the affordable housing situation. And when I just heard those figures of $2,500 to $3,000 for a one-bedroom apartment, how anyone can call that affordable or even middle housing or workforce housing, I do not understand that. I do want to thank the developers for their response to our request on the planting natives and native species and for no nitrogen fertilizers. I hope you would make that no fertilizer whatsoever, which isn't needed when you're planting natives. I think that's the end of my comments for the moment.
Wait,
I did have two more things. Sorry. There's there still doesn't seem to be any sort of picture or showing anything in those graphics of the access through BJ's, and no emergency access and no pedestrian access to BJ's, and also still no sidewalk from Wilkins Lane to Star Market. Those were, and also will the garages be able to be used for storage for if someone was a worker and wanted to store, paints and various tools in those garages? Would they be allowed to do that? That's it.
Thank you, Cynthia. Next, I've got Kat Stewart.
Hi, everybody. Hi, I'm Kat. Okay, I'll keep it as quick as I can. So I moved here about a year ago. I moved here in May from Brooklyn. I work in real estate. Little context about myself. I have no investment in the project or anything like that. But I guess my way of talking about this would be my experience deciding to live on Cape. I'm very much in support of this project. We need more housing on Cape. Trying to rent has been sort of this Herculean effort. Trying to find a year-long rental has been Herculean. I think what you guys are doing is fantastic. And by the way, you guys, council and New England Development, I know what it's like to put on these presentations. I do GIS and shadow studies for council back in Brooklyn, and I know how hard it can be. So you guys are doing a great job, and it seems very thoroughly researched. So that in and of itself is enough of a reason to support the project, in my opinion. I guess a couple questions that I have when I after my experience in looking for market rate housing, because I'm not looking for affordable housing, from speaking personally. What is the AMI? Which towns are the AMI based on? Because it is market rate is truly based so much on how much supply we have, right? So we're adding to the supply, so it's a long-term gain, right? So that's separate from the area median income. Is that Hyannis? Is it Barnstable? And I'm actually moving from Barnstable to Hyannis right now, so I can speak to both. So that's a big question for me. You guys it sounds like you're doing good work on sidewalks. How about bike lanes? Is there bike parking? I think those are my two big questions. I just wanted to make sure that you know that it is very hard to find a rental as, like a 34-year-old person coming to the Cape. It's been interestingly difficult. So I wanted to speak emphatically about what you guys are doing. That's really it.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Appreciate your comments. Next, I've got Brittany. Brittany, just unmute yourself and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Brittany, and I wrote a little something. I'll try to keep it as quick as possible. I'm a resident of Barnstable. I'm here to voice my strong opinion and support for the Wilkins Lane project because affordable housing, as we all know, is urgently needed on Cape Cod. We all know how hard it's become for working families, young people like myself, and even lifelong residents to find a place they can find to afford and live here. Housing costs have pushed people out of the communities that they love, and that's not sustainable for the long term of Cape Cod. The Wilkins Lane project is a meaningful step toward addressing the crisis. This will help provide real homes for real people, teachers, health care workers, first responders, and service industry employees, who are all essential to our local economy and quality of life. As a Barnstable resident, I believe we have a responsibility to support solutions that keep our community livable and inclusive to all. This project helps us do just that. Thank you for your time, and I hope you will support this much needed development. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I've got Paige Tivdan.
Yes. Hi, how are you?
Address for the
I'm Paige Tibnan. I'm a Barnstable native. I was born and raised on Cape Cod, and my family goes back generations to the Mayflower. So I've seen all the changes on Cape Cod. And at one point, my dad said to me, you know, just because you're here, you can't stop other people from coming. Like, this is an opportunity for everyone. And if young professionals can't afford homes here, they can't come. It's really important that we incubate them and give them a place to start, because people were saying, well, the rents are so expensive, but I know people that are firefighters and teachers who have mortgages that are $6,000 a month. And how is that doable for young people? So we just have to support affordable housing and people struggling with housing insecurity. And people were talking about traffic, and I wondered if anybody had been to the bridge because at like 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., it's backed up miles and miles. From 3 p.m. over the bridge, it's backed up miles and miles. So these people are leaving and they're going, you know, home off Cape, which is really hard to commute like that, but it's also leaving them a lack of community. So I am in support of this project. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, I've got Erica J.
Thank you, Erica Jansen. I'm a lifelong resident of Barnstable Village. So I wanted to address one particular area that was mentioned, which was the walkability of this project. That's a joke. The sidewalks that are in place by the Shaw's Plaza, those are fake sidewalks. No one walks on those sidewalks. To go into the strip malls, you're taking your life in your hands. So where are they going to walk to? They're going to walk to the dog park. They're going to walk to BJ's. Again, that's a strip mall. So it is not a walkable project. If they want to build a walkable project, which I'm totally in support of, I have a place in Florida, and I see what's happened where the residential buildings are placed in areas that are not walkable. Everybody has to get into their car, and it creates year-round gridlock in town. The place to put a multifamily dwelling, any dwellings, is in villages, not out in the middle of nowhere where it's not walkable, where cars rule. Hyannis Village, Osterville, or Barnstable Village. I mean, Barnstable Village is obviously a tiny village. Hyannis makes the most sense by far. People could walk there. It is a walkable community. That area of town is not walkable. And the idea that there's public transportation is a farce. There is no public transportation. The ranking from Strong Towns and other organizations for Cape Cod is an F, as well as bicycle transportation. You take your life in your hands. It is not a walkable community other than the villages. The villages are very walkable. That's where housing should go. This makes no sense whatsoever. And we're just going to be pouring more cars on the roads. If you have doctors and nurses and you build in Hyannis, they can walk to work or bike to work. They're going to get in their cars and they're going to be driving. And you put more cars on the road and you change the character of the community more than anything. That will completely destroy any character that's left. I mean, the charm from Cape Cod comes from the beaches, the ocean, and the villages, not from creating a suburban strip mall, car-centric wasteland, which is exactly what this project is moving towards. I would urge the board to reject this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, I've got Seth and Anthony.
ATN, but close enough.
I see you, Catherine. I'll get you.
No, it's cool. I'm just talking on my phone currently. Apologies. Seth ATN, 65 Fernwood Hyannis. I'm speaking in support of the project. I will concede to the other side, the side that is against it, especially the walkability. Like, I'm all for walkability. Like, I do agree with that. I do wish this project was a lot more walkable. Yes, I do wish this project had a lot more affordable housing at a lower AMI. For the young lady that spoke earlier about like what is AMI based on, AMI is based on the median income across Cape Cod. So we are comparing people that live in Hyannis to people who live in Provincetown and Chatham, and we're saying that this is what 50% of people make is higher than it. Like, of that number, 50% make more, 50% make less.
Sure, okay.
But also keep in mind that with AMI, it was also the concept of AMI came from the New Deal. And we've always had built within AMI the idea that multiple people are pulling the resources together to afford this number. And with our demographic changes, you can see where those problems are going to rise and get worse. We're not exactly marrying and coupling at the same rates that our parents and grandparents did. So at least as it comes to like AMI on the Cape, if you're not making six figures as a single person, you're considered to be beneath 100% AMI. So like but if you had a partner, then your responsibility goes down to like maybe $55,000. Now, I say this as someone who grew up in Hyannis. I was one of those people who left, got educated, came back, taught at Barnstable High School, and is currently a community organizer. So like all of this like means like much more to me than just the aesthetics. And like as an architecture grad, don't talk about beauty if you don't know how to define beauty in the first place, or you don't like talk about character. You're just gonna leave it vague and not define it. Returning back to what Betty Lucky said earlier, I do like, even though it does sound, if I got her right, she's against the project, but there's a lot of good questions that I do think deserve answers about the proportion of people at the Hanover project that do work at the hospital. Like, what exactly is there a number that we can attach to people who work at the hospital who live at those apartments? That'd be good. However, on the whole, big picture thinking, don't let perfect be the enemy of progress. There's a lot of things that could be improved with this project. I mean, I'm not better than the consultants that can make a 100-page research document on different aspects of the site, water, energy, all that. There are things that I wish were idealized, but regardless, this is still a step forward in the right direction. Is it the walkability that I want and that Hyannis could support? No. Is it going to add more traffic? More than likely, yes. However, it is still shelter that is being provided to people that ideally would live here. I just started working in Orleans, and it's wild to see the traffic pattern of like, if I leave work at 4 o'clock, it's the people that leaving from Orleans, going down Route 6 that live in Barnstable, and the people that work in Barnstable going over the bridge. And it's kind of like, I think back to the study that looked at traffic patterns on Cape and who is coming onto Cape and who's leaving Cape. And some of that was muddled with people who work remotely that are counted as people who like work off Cape. But I do like a question that lingers in the back of my mind is it possible to find out like what does the median worker look like? Or is there a profile of the median travel pattern? And if we could like figure that out, how could we design a solution around that and maybe improve the quality of life for people with Barnstable? So overall, in summation, yes, the project support. There are a lot of things to nitpick about this, but if you were to just deny this project, what's the solution you're providing going forward? And then also last reference, because again, Councilwoman Lucky mentioned that 86% of the land is already built out. And like that is true. However, think about how Hyannis is what? 1/8 of the landmass of Barnstable. However, a third of our population of Barnstable residents live in Hyannis. If we can square out that math, then I feel like we can at least figure out the rest of the housing situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. All right, next up, going here, Kathleen Clark, we heard from you. Jay Smith, you're speaking. You just have to unmute yourself, please.
Unmute. I'm Jay Smith. I live in Barnstable Village. I grew up here. So I know what it was like before we became so commercial. The first time I drove down Wilkins Lane and saw that monstrosity, I just wanted to cry. Those buildings are not Cape Cod buildings. They don't belong here. The water department in Barnstable Village has 3 employees. How do you think they're going to cover another 320 unit building? They have enough trouble covering Hanover Hyannis. Our fire department is a certain size. They hope to expand eventually, but we don't have the resources for all these buildings. We really don't. And they don't belong on Cape Cod. Addicts Lane has become a raceway. Used to be a great road to take to Hyannis instead of 132. Can you imagine all the traffic that's going to be on that road? And when you go down Wilkins and you cut on to Kids Hill, that road is dangerous. There's a huge curb. They need to put a flashing sign or something. People come speeding around that curve and you're not even ready for them. So I'm basically very disappointed in this project. I would like to see a park built on that piece of land, not another apartment building. And I don't believe too many nurses can afford those apartments. I think it would be a great idea to see how many Cape Cod Hospital staff people are living in Hanover Hyannis. I don't think many are. Their prices are terrible. It's just not made for Cape Cod. I really wish we could just put a park there. So please think about our water department, our fire department. We don't have the resources to take care of another building. We really don't. I guess that's it.
Thank you very much. All right, moving along here, we've got a few more. Kathy Ledeck, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you.
Wait, just been going in order of how the squares are aligned on the screen.
That's okay. I just don't have the ability to hit raise hand. Unfortunately, many of us don't. My name is Catherine Ledeck, and I live in Barnstable Village. While I'm the Cape Cod Commission rep for the town of Barnstable, I'm not here to speak to you in that capacity. I speak here as a resident of the town of Barnstable on issues that are local matters to be handled by the town of Barnstable's process, including this ZBA. This project will provide important year-round housing, including some affordable housing units. Of course, more is better. We need this, and I support the project generally. There are a few details, however, that could be improved. These are local matters, and I've not heard anybody mention any of these yet. So the first one is the main entrance to Hanover 2. So this is separate from Hanover 1, and this makes no sense. The main entrance to both Hanover and 1 and Hanover 2 should be coordinated. There should be one main entrance that ends in a T, so that when folks entering the community itself will either turn right to go to Hanover 1 or left to go to Hanover 2. And then the extra entrance or exit on Wilkins Lane for Hanover 1 could be closed to avoid conflicts between the entrances. This has not been discussed. It's very important because the entrance into Hanover 2 looks like a main entrance to both communities, but it is not drawn in that way. The second question I have is an enhancement to the project which would benefit future residents, especially those who hope to live a healthier lifestyle would be to work with Cape Cod Aggregate to create a second emergency access point across Cape Cod Aggregate property, which is currently not used. This could also connect residents and pedestrians to the trails that take you to Hathaway Pond, which would offer an additional opportunity for healthy living for the 500 plus apartments that are present in Hanover 1 and Hanover 2. Improving bus service, as was noted by an earlier speaker, is really important, and there should be a bus stop at the site. You'll have more than 500 apartments here. That's a lot of potential future bus riders. It doesn't make any sense to me that there's no specific bus stop that's yet been identified to service both of these buildings. This would be very helpful. The next item I would ask about is that a handful of the parking spaces be larger than those for just a regular sedan or a small SUV. Many residents of Barnstable, or Cape Cod for that matter, who could live at this site, drive large pickup trucks. They won't fit in those parking spaces, nor will they likely fit in the garage spaces. So I would ask the applicant to consider expanding the size of several of those outdoor parking spaces and several of the garage areas to accommodate these very large pickup trucks that many contractors who may be living at the site would use. My question to the applicant tonight would be, will there be chargers provided for e-bikes and e-scooters? I haven't heard anybody mention that either. And then my last comment here, I challenge the applicant. If in 1 year's time, after you open it up for rent, if there are any vacant units at that 1 year time from opening, I would ask that the applicant consider converting those to workforce housing units at 80% AMI. Those are all of my comments. Thank you very much to the applicant and to the staff and to the board for all of your work tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Ledeck. All right, so going along, Tim Mahoney. Just unmute yourself. You're muted. You're still muted.
Top right-hand corner. Move your cursor up there.
It's not sometimes.
We'll come back to you. See if you can get yourself unmuted. Lisa DeLuz, did you want to speak? Lisa? No. All right, Bill Carey.
Hi, I'm Bill Carey. I couldn't find the icon here to raise my hand, so I'm surprised you found me here. So I'm Bill Carey. I'm a resident in Barnstable. I've lived here for 50 years with my wife, and a lot of things have been covered that I was going to speak to. So I'll kind of paraphrase what I have here. So starting off, how much more rental housing do you really want in Independence Park? Gordon Starr, town councilor for Precinct 1, had told me that 600 rental units have been added to Independence Park recently in the past 8 years. You have Phase 1 Wilkins Housing, which has 220 units. Everleigh, or Everly, I guess, has about 320 units. Then there's the Village Green, which is opposite the school, and two other large housing projects on Independence Way and at the corner of Mary Dunn Road. So with the Wilkins Housing Project added, the Wilkins Housing Project 2 that we're talking about tonight, you'll have well over 1,000 units in Independence Park, with probably well over 2,000 adults plus their families with their children. So how much more concentration of residences and families do you want in such a small area? Projects of this magnitude change the local community. Culturally, I would describe this project as more urban-like than rural Cape Cod, with such a large with such a large influx of people. How does that affect our schools, the police, and other infrastructure? I had recommended at the commission meetings that they needed a feasibility study to determine if this housing project even makes economic sense and whether the highest and best use of the area is industrial or commercial development. They could also analyze vacancy rates and profiles of the prospective tenants. So it's more of a global look at the whole project. Independence Park from inception was supposed to be for industrial commercial development. Adding the church and the school to the Independence Park is kind of a stretch from that original intent. And the several residential projects located in the industrial park is, I think, inappropriate. We need to be supporting commercial enterprises for job creation. Emphasis should be on good jobs that are higher pay and not the lower paying retail jobs that BJ, Stop and Shop, and Home Depot offer. The reason for our youth leaving Cape Cod is because of lack of good paying jobs from industrial commercial enterprise. Everyone at the commission meeting, as well as tonight that we're speaking in favor of Wilkins housing, said Cape Cod has a housing shortage, plus how important the project was for providing needed affordable housing. There seems to be a huge disconnect, I think a misunderstanding. From what I can understand from the information provided for Wilkins, the market rents would be $2,600 to $3,600 average, depending upon number of bedrooms, to over $4,000 for the larger 3-bedroom units. In addition, tenants would have to pay the utilities, internet, and streaming fees, possibly monthly parking fees for both indoor and outdoor parking. The housing costs will be more than the average principal, interest, and taxes for mortgage costs at such high rental rates. This project cannot be the answer to the housing shortage on Cape Cod that so many people have been talking about. Wilkins Housing will not answer the Cape's housing shortage or addressing the issue of affordability or workforce affordability. This Wilkins rental project is serving a transient population and not one with permanent citizens. I'm just about done here. Thank you for your time. We need to create a pathway to affordability and to building equity and home ownership for building wealth. Most of us that have been able to do that as homeowners have become permanent residents of Cape Cod. We need to be moving people into home ownership and not market rents. Market rents are subject to the whims of the landlord and the macroeconomic environment. If the landlord wants to increase rents at the end of the lease, then rents will go up, which may become more unaffordable. Again, we should have feasibility study done to understand the viability and profiles of the population of tenants. In conclusion, and addressing the exodus of our working force people, we should be working towards developing and saving the limited resources and space as originally intended and originally zoned at Independence Park towards its original purpose of job creation, with good paying jobs from the industrial commercial business sector. Then our youthful working force can afford to buy housing on Cape Cod, a solution for permanent residency. Thank you for your time and thank you for having this meeting.
Thank you. Back to Mr. Mahoney, did you get unmuted? If you want to try calling in, our next meeting will be in person, still with public hearing. Lisa DeLuz, did you want to speak? All right, Steve Dazzo, just unmute yourself if you want to speak.
Steve's with the groups, Jay.
Yep, you're right. Yep, got it. Catherine Clark spoke, Jay Smith, John Lippman, Paige, Betty. There's a Cynthia. Cynthia spoke. Diane Jensen, did you want to speak? I don't believe you spoke. Gordon Starr, Counselor Starr, did you want to speak?
No, thank you. Not tonight, Jake.
All right. Jeffrey Dirk, I believe he's with the group. Tim Sullivan, I believe, is with the group.
That's correct.
Tyler Haskell, I believe, is also with the group. So I think I got everyone except for Mr. Mahoney. I don't know if, David, you can manually unmute him or not, but
I don't believe I can. I can ask him to unmute, but that's about it.
Mr. Mahoney, you can't take the cursor up to the right-hand corner of your picture on the screen. See the 3 blue dots. Click on it, and it should unmute. You should have an option to unmute.
Or it could be a little microphone on the left-hand side, depending on where you're viewing it on.
well, Mr. Mahoney, we will be in person at Town Hall for our next meeting to continue public comment on this. You also can send an email to Anna Brigham and she'll forward it to us as well. All right, so we're going to keep public comment open. Is there any of our board members have any follow-up questions or anything they would like Attorney Ford and his team to come back with in particular for the next meeting?
Yeah, just one thing, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind. And it was just, I appreciate all the comments tonight. And it just for 2 seconds, I mean, when we're looking at this, a community that isn't changing or evolving is generally considered unsuccessful. This project obviously can't be everything to everyone. I caution when people are looking at the rents and determining that it's too high or too low. There have been hundreds of thousands of dollars in value realized in personal home ownership for the people that are potentially making comment. But one of the things that I think sort of needs to be addressed is, if you've got we'll just call it a household of 2 people. If they're over 100, if they're making $100,000, they are not going to qualify for these affordable units. And I think, and this is anecdotal, that when we're seeing people that are making, I'm not going to say couples, but just a household of 2, there really needs to be a strong look, I think, at 100 to 120% AMI increase in units. And I am not, being in the business is not lost on me that people have investor commitments and that these projects are extremely expensive, extremely complicated. But honestly, when we are looking at, not so much is this a detriment to the public, but is this serving the public that in which we are a part of? And at that point, I really do believe that 42 plus units, this is still an ask at the end of the day. And I do think that we should be seeing, honestly, something upwards of 20%. But I'd like to see the bulk of the remainder not be the lower end. I'd rather actually see it in that 100 to 120% AMI. It doesn't hit the investors as hard, but I do think from a perspective of our needs that we really need to look at that, because if you take a person who is a firefighter and some other professional, person, they are not going to qualify for these units. And then at that point, we're into the market rate units. I think it's not as effective as it could be. I think that as far as, the water usage or sewer capacity, we have professionals that will tell us whether or not the capacity is there, and we have building codes that they have to meet. So I would like them to take a strong look at that sort of 100 to 120% AMI to increase the number of units that are proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. One thought, Attorney Ford, that I had for your team, and you don't have to respond or answer to it, but would the developer consider offering units buy down to either our Affordable Housing Trust, our CPC committee, which would then go to Town Council to purchase down more affordable units in this project, falling in line with the NOFA that our housing trust currently has available. Was just an idea that I had an opportunity for the town to buy more affordable units and buy down rents. But that was just a thought. Anyone else before we continue this to our next hearing?
Just a comment for the applicants to react to perhaps at the next meeting, Mr. Chairman. Since the design is to make these units electric, and there is no interest or there's no plan to install solar panels. The point about the costs of utilities when added, if everything is electric and electricity costs are on the rise and will likely continue to be, the overall sort of operating cost of the unit is more important to me than what the rent is. Because the affordability, the income coming in has to support the household. So curious is, given the experience they've had with Hanover Hyannis, if they could give us some sense of what the utility costs would be and what the sort of operating household cost would be. Because I think focusing on AMI, especially when you're sort of tracking people towards lack of choice in terms of utilities, if everything is electrical, how expensive that truly becomes. Conversely, how unaffordable.
Thank you, Manny. Attorney Ford, do you have any other questions or follow up anything before we continue this to our next hearing?
No, I think we've taken copious notes on what the board members are looking for. We'll discuss those as a team and be prepared to report back to you at your next meeting on this and other public comment that we've heard tonight.
All right. Thank you. So, and I believe I need to make a motion to continue this. Is that how we, yeah. And Attorney Ford, you're good for the next meeting, which would be
June 11th?
June 11th.
Yes, we had planned on June 11th for the next meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Perfect. All right. So I will make a motion to continue appeal number, this is 2025-013 to June 11th, 2025 at 7:01.
I'll second that.
Roll call vote in approving the continuation. The public hearing is still open and public comment is still open on the item. Again, for the public, we can receive comments via email to Anna, and she will get them to us, and we can read them into the record at the next meeting. And feel free to come to town hall at the next meeting. Herb Bodenseek.
In favor.
Mark Hansen.
I'm in favor.
Natalie Pittenger.
In favor.
Danny House.
In favor.
And I am also in favor. So that is continued to our next meeting. So moving along, correspondence. We received notice from Cape Cod Commission meeting for next grid solar born meeting Wednesday, June 4th, 2025 at 5 p.m. Cape Cod Commission meeting for development agreement regulations amendment Thursday, June 5th, 2025 at 3 p.m. And that is all the correspondence. Any matters not reasonably anticipated? All right, upcoming hearings, June 11th, 2025 in person at Town Hall. June 25th, 2025 will be back on Zoom. June 9th, 2025 will be in person back at Town Hall.
July
9th, 2025. Anyone have anything else? All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn. I need a second.
Second.
Roll call vote. Herb Bodenseek.
In favor.
Mark Hansen.
I'm in favor.
Aaron Webb.
In favor.
Larry Hurwitz.
In favor.
Manny Alves.
In favor.
Natalie Pittenger.
In favor.
I'm also in favor. So we are adjourned. Thank you, David. I appreciate you.